December 1944. Deep in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge rages. German panzer divisions are spearheading a massive surprise offensive, aiming to split the Allied forces and seize the vital port of Antwerp. For the American GIs caught in the onslaught, it's a desperate fight for survival against overwhelming odds. But amidst the chaos of exploding shells and rattling machine guns, a strange and eerie silence begins to fall over sections of the German advance. One by one, entire tank crews are vanishing without a fight. Their powerful Panthers and Tigers are found abandoned, engines cold, hatches open, with no signs of combat. What was happening? The Germans were baffled. The Americans were relieved, but just as confused. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was it a new secret weapon? A ghost haunting the woods? The truth was far more ingenious and centered on a single American sniper who decided to break the rules. This is the incredible and largely unsung story of how one soldier, as clever hack, turned the tide in his small corner of the war using a weapon the enemy never saw coming. Silence. To understand this incredible story, we first need to understand the terror of the German tank. The Panther and the Tiger were beasts of the battlefield. Their thick armor was nearly impenetrable to standard American anti-tank weapons, and their 88mm cannons could knock out a Sherman tank from over a mile away. For an infantryman in a foxhole, the sight of a German panzer rumbling towards you was a death sentence. The standard-issue American bazooka was often nicknamed the cornstalk, because its rockets would frequently bounce right off the frontal armor of these German behemoths. The psychological impact was immense. These tanks weren't just weapons. They were morale-breaking monsters. The standard procedure for tank crews in combat was to operate buttoned up. This meant all hatches were sealed shut, and the crew relied on narrow vision slits and periscopes to see the outside world. This protected them from shrapnel, machine gun fire, and artillery. However, it also created a massive blind spot. Their situational awareness was severely limited. It was like trying to drive a car by looking through a tiny keyhole. To get a better view of the battlefield, especially in the dense, unfamiliar terrain of the Ardennes, tank commanders frequently had to do something risky: pop their heads out of the top hatch. This brief moment of exposure was their Achilles heel. Our story focuses on a U.S. Army sniper, whose name has unfortunately been lost to the mists of history, though his legend lives on. Let's call him Sergeant Miller. Miller was an experienced marksman, armed with a standard-issue Springfield M1903 sniper rifle. He was tasked with disrupting the German advance, but shooting at the tanks themselves was pointless. He needed a new approach. He watched the German panzers for days, studying their tactics. He noticed the pattern. The tanks would advance, stop, the commander's hatch would creak open, and a head would pop out to survey the area. That was the moment of opportunity. But there was a problem. A big one. The crack of a high-powered sniper rifle is incredibly loud. It's a sound that instantly gives away your position. Miller could take out one tank commander, but the muzzle flash and thunderous report of his rifle would immediately draw the fire of every other tank and machine gun in the area. It would be a one-way ticket. He needed to be a ghost. He needed to be silent. Now, official military-issue silencers, or suppressors, as they're technically called, were rare in World War II. They existed, but were typically reserved for special operations units like the OSS, the precursor to the CIA. A regular Army sniper like Miller wouldn't have access to one. Furthermore, modifying your service weapon was strictly against regulations. It was considered illegal, tampering with government property, and could land a soldier in serious trouble. But for Miller, survival and stopping the enemy were more important than Army regulations. So he decided to improvise. He got his hands on a simple length of pipe, possibly salvaged from a wrecked vehicle or a nearby barn. Using basic tools he could find, he began to fashion a homemade suppressor. The concept of a suppressor is relatively simple. It's essentially a muffler for a gun. It works by trapping and slowing down the hot, high-pressure gases that exit the barrel behind the bullet. By giving these gases a larger volume to expand into and a series of baffles to swirl around, it dramatically reduces the speed at which they exit the muzzle, thus muffling the bang. Miller's creation was likely crude. He would have needed to thread the end of his rifle barrel or create some kind of clamp system to attach his makeshift device. Inside the pipe, he might have used a series of metal washers separated by spacers to act as baffles. It wouldn't have been Hollywood movie silent. A suppressed high-velocity rifle still makes a distinct crack as the bullet breaks the sound barrier. But what it would eliminate is the loud, booming muzzle blast. In the cacophony of a battlefield, the sonic crack of the bullet itself would be almost impossible to locate. The shooter would remain anonymous. With his modified illegal rifle, Sergeant Miller went to work. He found a well-concealed position overlooking a key road the German panzers were using. He waited patiently. Soon, the familiar rumble of a Panther tank approached. The tank stopped. As he had observed, the commander's hatch opened and an officer emerged to scan the terrain with his binoculars. Miller took a deep breath, aimed, and squeezed the trigger. Instead of a deafening blast, there was only a dull thump and the whisper of the bullet cutting through the air. The German commander collapsed back into his turret, a single, precise shot having found its mark. Inside the tank, the remaining crew would have heard a thud from above, maybe a muffled shout. They would have no idea what had happened. All they knew was that their commander was suddenly silent. Remember, these crews were already on edge, deep in enemy territory. The commander was their eyes, their ears, and their leader. Without him, they were blind and afraid. Panic would set in. Was it a trap? Were they surrounded? Unable to see anything through their vision slits and with no orders coming from the commander's station, the crew's imagination would run wild. After a few minutes of terrifying silence, their nerve would break. One by one, they would open their own hatches and bail out, abandoning their perfectly functional multi-million-dollar war machine and fleeing into the woods, assuming a massive ambush was imminent. Miller repeated this process again and again. Another tank would rumble up the road, often to investigate why the first one had stopped. The new commander would pop his head out. Another silenced shot. Another dead commander. Another panicked crew abandoning their tank. For the Germans, it was mystifying. They found their tanks intact, no damage, no signs of a firefight. Just a dead commander and a missing crew. The psychological effect was devastating. This wasn't just killing soldiers, it was creating phantom terror. Over the course of several days, Idsat said that this one lone sniper was responsible for the abandonment of up to 15 German tanks. 15. That's an entire company of armor, neutralized not by bazookas or artillery, but by a piece of pipe and one soldier's ingenuity. He single-handedly created a ghost front, a section of the battlefield that German tankers became terrified to enter. They didn't know what they were facing, and the unknown is always the most frightening enemy. This tactic, born of desperation and genius, highlights a crucial aspect of warfare. Psychology is as powerful as firepower. Sergeant Miller understood that he didn't need to destroy the tank. He just needed to break the will of the men inside it. By surgically removing the leader, he decapitated the entire unit and let fear do the rest of the work. His illegal modification, a court-martial offense in peacetime, became a war-winning innovation on the frozen battlefields of the Bulge. The story of the Ardennes sniper is a testament to the individual soldier, his ability to change the course of a battle through cleverness and courage. It reminds us that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the biggest or the loudest, but the one that operates in silence, striking at the mind as much as the body. While his name may be lost, his legacy is a powerful example of how one person, thinking outside the box, can make an army of steel and iron vanish into thin air. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this piece of hidden history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories you won't find in the official textbooks. Let us know in the comments what other incredible battlefield innovations you've heard of. See you next time.